This is our new way 4x12 bandsaw. It's the exact same as the Black & Decker makes one that's just like it. I found this company online. Makes tires for it. I don't currently have any tires installed on it. It's one of the parts I needed. So I went ahead and took the cover off. There's 3 screws. There's a bolt back here to adjust the actual tightness of this to the frame, kind of a locking mechanism. I'm going to go ahead and loosen this because we've got to pop this blade off of here. If you think you see spatters of rain, it's because you do. They send this screwdriver, which is right here, with a roller on it. What they're wanting you to do is put it on there and then kind of roll. That way this doesn't get torn up and that doesn't get torn up. And this can kind of be wiggled, but if you let it roll a few times, it'll straighten itself out. Kind of like an O-ring. Once you twist it down on there, you want to take a pick and go around it a few times. Hello, Sassy. And that kind of releases any rolls that might be in your O-ring. But we're just going to go ahead and try and slap these bad boys on. I imagine this will be the most difficult. Got the guard here. And here's what we're talking about. These have to stretch. Now these are pretty fancy, excuse me, there's a hair in my eye. Pretty fancy tires. So they have to stretch more. Not so much more, but like it's more difficult to stretch them, if you will. You see how it's just pulling off that other side? Probably what you see is a lot of my forearm. I think it's funny that a lot of people seem to want to watch this channel when I make so many videos of my forearm. That's going about like it looks. So if this was a metal wheel, I'd probably just put some vice grips on it. But my hand isn't big enough to continue that. And I'm trying to shoot a video, so let's try this. I can't quite span everything I need to, but maybe we can get close. Just slide that up underneath there. And I feel like I should have put these in like a pot of boiling water, because this dude here is stout. Wish there was a good way to lock these things in. I think it came with more instructions than what I read. That's probably my fault. Started to. Hello, cat. You know, mounting this to a more permanent fixture would probably help a lot. Okay, so as you can see, that's working for shit. Crap, nothing. Move this around here. Stuff off the table. Let's try this. This is our new way 4x12 bandsaw. It's tire day because the old ones, well, it didn't have any on it. Why? Got it. I didn't pay a whole lot for sauce. It wasn't a big deal. This kit, made in America. There's 3 of these. There's something in there. What on earth is that? Anyways, we're going to try this one. Now, ideally, you would have a way to lock these pulleys, because they're about as much fun as it looks. I think this is some fancy material, and they'll probably outlast the rest of the saw, but I think the factory style rubber ones would probably be a little easier to put on. I know I tried briefly to put them on with the saw standing up, and because it's not actually mounted to anything at this time, it was not any fun. I just ended up pretty much trying to tip it over and then stopping and trying to tip it over and then nope, stop. I've put these on bigger saws, but they were like 3-phase saws. Okay, so obviously that's not right. So we're gonna see if we can use this here to kind of spin that. The big 3-phase saws, the motor is so stout it kind of acts like a brake, and it's not that big a deal. Okay, so that's on. Just twist it back around, make sure it's fit all the way down in the groove. And we have a bandsaw tire installed. Let's see if we can get to the next one, which I assume is going to be just as much fun. I did what I was hoping is the easy one first. It's not my usual way to do things. However, it occurred to me that if I did it first, I might have some idea as to what I was doing. Usually, if I have some clue, have done something similar before, I'll just do the hard one first and get it out of the way. Because I haven't done a huge amount of these, and I've never done one on this saw. I didn't want to start with a hard one. Just didn't seem like a good idea. It seemed like a good way to get really frustrated. Alright, so that's on. If I spin it, I can see that that's pretty much a consistent surface. I'm gonna do this last one. I know I said that it might be easier if I bolted it down to something, but I think maybe doing it where the saw is laying down might be the hot ticket on these little saws. I know the little rubber wheels on my little Milwaukee portable saw are way easier to install than this. Maybe that's a problem, but okay, now if we get this flipped around, because you see it won't spin all the way around, it's got stuff around it, so I figured this would probably be the difficult one. I'm just taking a screwdriver and slowly and gently, I'm not stabbing anything, and again, this screwdriver actually came with the kit. I didn't realize it was going to come with one. It probably told me it, but I'll look at stuff during the day and be like, yeah, that's the part I need, and then I try and make like one large order in the evenings after I've had time to look at everything. So now we've got tires on, which will make the pulleys last longer. It'll make the blade last longer. Go ahead and this blade down there. guard down here. Now I haven't set my rub blocks right, and part of that's because I was waiting on this, because it just didn't seem to make any sense to do some of this stuff until I had more parts in. I'd like to set some new bearings in here, but that hasn't happened yet. So you can see the hound dog is on duty, or you can hear. I don't know what he's on about today. Let's move this back, set the saw back up right. And then, because of how this stuff goes on, and the fact that it's grown bigger now, I don't know if you can see that, the fact that these wheels are bigger changes what the adjustments need to be. There's a little set screw in the back here, which I think last time I set it, it took a 3mm Allen, but now it's, so you can see, this is walking clear off the back, and it wasn't doing that before. So we're going to have to reset that. Let's see what we can do about that. Maybe grab an extension cord so we can turn this thing on and make sure it's trued up. Okay, so I got an Allen in the back of this. I have an extension cord on it. Let off a little bit of that, that set screw. Got some tension here. We're just going to real briefly see how it walked immediately to the back. So we need to let actually a little more out of that set screw in the back. Oh, sassy, please stop hacking the camera. Now when we did, we drove it right up front. So back and put quarter turn more. So I took probably a little too much off. So you can see it's starting to rain. If you look at the tools, you kind of see some dots there. In doing so, our neighbor behind us has decided to mow his lawn. This is the neighbor who isn't particularly fond of our hound dog either, which is fine. Nobody has to be fond of a hound dog if they don't want to be. But he's a fun guy. Okay, so we're going to immediately go back. Going to the back, it's got too much. Going to the front, doesn't have enough. So a little more. So we're looking at this here. I don't know what that's rubbing against. I do know that's not tight enough anymore. It's on. Oop, way front. So a little more. Loosen the jam nut, tighten the Allen. You can see it's right up on this edge, so we're going to need to put just a little more in it because it kind of does that on all of them at once. And this thing's sensitive. I'm doing quarter turn or a little less. And this is why we let it run for a little bit, because sometimes it'll just decide, oh, well, that was too much, and just move to the back. And it's not too far off from right, but I really like it to be a little more centered. Cute. Now, it goes without saying, operating these devices without a safety guard is not a real bright move. one I do because I like to see where the tires are at, but not one you should do. Cleaning lady just showed up at the other neighbors. I think the piece on the bottom is actually interfering. I think that bottom guard. Okay, so we did some adjusting here, and I actually thought I had the camera on, so I'm sorry about that. We've kind of adjusted the blocks a little bit. They hadn't been ever really adjusted since I've owned the thing. I bought this. Guy had it sitting outside of his, I don't know if he'd used it on his boat or what, but it was sitting next to a boat outside of a shed a couple towns over. And nice guy, but again, I don't know anything about this saw except for that's where I got it. I don't know anything about its history or anything like that. So I will, when I'm testing it, I'll go ahead and try and push that blade back up closer to where I want it to be. That way I don't get a false reading. Pretty close. I'd love to have it back just a touch further, but that little set screw back here is wicked sensitive. So I'm letting it run for a little bit now, which I usually do when I'm adjusting stuff like this, just to make sure nothing jumps off. I hate to put the cover back on and then have to deal with it. Looks like it's running tighter. I wish the motor pulley was adjusted a little bit better, but that's good. That's good. All the guards seem pretty close. Now that it's run for a minute, I'm going to go back and readjust the cool blocks, or the pillow blocks on the side and the bearing on the back. Actually, as it turns out, this one's pretty dang close. When you adjust these blocks up, you want them to be on either side of the blade, kind of in the meaty part of the blade, but you don't want them to be where they can make contact with the teeth. That's how they get worn out prematurely. You don't want that bearing quite touched. You don't want anything actually touching the blade while it's running in a straight line with no load like this. So I'm pretty satisfied with these. Go ahead. This is where you should probably unplug your saw. I'm fat and lazy. We're not going to do that. As fat as I was, though. Lost some weight. So just don't quite tighten them up until they're all set. And this should be able to drop down. You want it fairly close to the working height of whatever you're doing. I just leave this one set up because if I ever were to need it for something real quick, I'd rather it be a little bit too big and a little bit too small so I can just kind of be done. The last video I used this in, I ran it pretty high because I was cutting this stuff. I didn't have any tires on it. I didn't have anything adjusted. So once all these three are started and finger tightened, go back and tighten them up a little bit. Don't need to be real tight, just about yay tight. I'm going to drop this down to where it's just a little bit above it. Practice cut here. That screeching noise you hear is the saw hitting the bearing. Now, the reason we do the practice cut, you can see that little mark there, that's not square. Holding this square down, feels pretty flat. So this whole table needs tilted this end up a little bit. There's a set screw down here for 0. I don't know if we're on it or not. We must be, because those two lines are completely parallel. I'll have to go through and dig that out and then pull a little bit out of the set screw. So when it comes back to the frame, it'll be completely true. But in the meantime, we can safely say that our little bandsaw is ready to be pushed into service. The blade is a little dull from cutting that epoxy stuff, but I'm pretty happy with it. I think it'll work good for what we're doing. I always get more blades. I had $20 initial investment in this saw. I think the blade was 10. I think the wheels were like 20, or tires were like 24. I think that's all you can ask for a saw that's got less than $100 in it.